3 months ago, when we had our other rally, we introduced our coalition of labor and environmental and democracy advocates who were all opposed to fast-track trade promotion authority being granted to our president. Something we feel strongly will speed the passage of a trade deal, specifically the Trans-Pacific Partnership, and other trade deals that we feel could be very bad for American workers and workers around the world, and bad for the environment and bad for the sovereignty of our democracy.
The last time in the history of this country that we had this much corporate power over our economic policy and our political process was actually when we weren't even a country yet. And that is when the East India Company, that was chartered by the Kingdom of Britain, got a very weak king of the Kingdom of Britain to issue a tax program in this country to enforce a monopoly on tea that was held by the East India Company. I bring this up because it did not end well for either the East India Company or the Kingdom of Britain when they did this. And this fast-track bill that continues to give corporations more unprecedented power, not only of the treaty, of the Trans-Pacific Partnership Treaty, but also of our economic and political process. This fast-track bill is really the same thing. It's a very, very interesting and very accurate parallel. Right now, our interests are not being represented in this trade negotiation. They are being represented by some 600 people, overwhelmingly dominated by American big business, instead of our elected officials in Congress who should be at the negotiating table, or even trade representatives who should be at the negotiating table. Our interests as Americans are not being represented in these negotiations. So,
resolution. That's ISDS, not to confuse with some other initials. What this does is it says nations give the right to corporations for them to be sued in secret tribunals solely because the corporations are prohibited from making a profit. No standards, just the corporate right to make money. If the secret tribunal rules that a corporation is not allowed to make money because of some national standard like environmental standards, the corporations can collect damages from the country. These tribunals are done in secret. There are no rules. It's not an open court system the way we're used to in the U.S. ISDS is an enormous threat to America and to the world for all kinds of reasons. It is not the way to do this. It's one of the most significant giveaways to the corporate world that I've ever
20,000 Connecticut Food and Water Watch members, consumers and constituents who know that the Trans-Pacific Partnership will threaten the safety of our food. The TPP will unravel vital food safety rules that make this trade deal literally a kitchen table issue. Trade deals put business interests before the public interest, and the TPP cares more about imports than it does import safety.
And we oppose the Trans-Pacific Partnership because we've seen the devastating effects that these trade agreements have on real people and their communities around the world. We have mission partners all over the world. Just to give a few examples, in India, farmers are fighting against Monsanto and other multinational corporations who are trying to push GMO seeds on them. And over 200 farmers have committed suicide in the last couple years because they've been forced into crippling debt or lost their farms over the debt cycle that they are put into because of the GMO seeds. They're forced to purchase the seeds from Monsanto, they're forced to purchase the chemicals to treat them, and they cannot reuse their seeds, which they've been doing for generations. In Peru, a country I'm very familiar with, we have a Peru partnership in our presbytery. In the little town of La Arroya in the Andean Mountains, there is a lead smelting plant owned by a multinational, multi-billionaire from Long Island named Ira Rennert that has been polluting that area for the last 15, 20 years. And has refused to make the environmental upgrades that they agreed to. 97% of the children in that community have lead poisoning at levels 10 times what's acceptable by the World Health Organization. These communities are being dealt a raw deal.
On behalf of our 1.2 million members of Democracy for America, some 10,000 of whom are in Connecticut, many, including myself, who live in this district, I would urge the congressman to support and do the will of the people of the United States of America, not the United States of Morgan Stanley, not the United States of Goldman Sachs, not the United States of Exxon, or any other sovereign wealth fund of the 11 countries who we're negotiating with. I ask the congressman to represent this country and the overwhelmingly majority of Americans in this district to put a stop to this thing, to put a stop to this bill that gives the president unlimited power for 6 years to negotiate these kinds of agreements, and to put this negotiation back in the hands of the American people so that we can see what's in this agreement and we can have a voice in the end and the outcome of it for fair labor standards, for environmental standards, and for the overwhelmingly majority of Americans, 90% who have not gotten a raise in the last 20 years. So Congressman Himes, please listen to your constituents, vote no on fast track, and let the American people be part of this decision process and not just a bunch of corporations who are not acting in the national interest. Thank you.
This is not the end, this is not the beginning. Just a voice like a riot rocket every revision. But you listen to the tone and the violent rhythm and know the words sound steady, some empty.